crisis in the housing market, the slide of the dollar, and the bailout of Bear Stearns all indicate that the U.S. economy is edging towards a recession. Real News reporter Matthew Pilevsky spoke to Doug Henwood, the editor of the Left Business Observer.
There's actually been very little serious discussion. It's been all very vague. Hillary Clinton's speech the other day was a step forward in specifics, but there's still not an awful lot of detail on that.
I'm calling on President Bush to appoint an emergency working group on foreclosures. That's the second part of my plan. We simply cannot wait until Congress passes legislation to find the best way to help millions of families. That's why I'm proposing this emergency working group on foreclosures. It could be led by a distinguished, nonpartisan group of economic leaders like Alan Greenspan, Robert Rubin, Paul Volcker.
And then she made a bizarre decision to call upon Alan Greenspan and Robert Rubin to solve the problem. Greenspan, who had a lot to do with creating the thing in the first place, and Rubin, who confessed last summer that he didn't even know what these financial instruments were that were causing all the trouble. So I don't know if these are the two guys, but I guess she's just hoping their names are magic, whether people really know all those details or not. But $30 billion is a start. It's certainly more than the administration is talking about. Not clear what she would do with it, and I'm not sure she is either. It would help some people, but the scale of the problem is in the hundreds of billions of dollars. So it's at best a small down payment of what needs to be done. One thing you could do is buy up the mortgages that people are in trouble on. The government could take some money, buy up the mortgages at a discount, and then eat some of the cost, force some of the banks to write off some of the cost, and then the people who are in trouble with their mortgages would have a lower payment and a fixed interest rate. That, I think, is the shape of a solution that a likely Democratic administration would follow next year. But I don't think people want to talk about the details, because the kinds of money that would be involved are huge. Hundreds of billions of dollars we're talking. So I don't think anybody wants to talk about anything that big and serious in an election season.
Alan Greenspan said this could be the worst financial crisis since World War II. And it's not just affecting Wall Street. It's affecting everyday Americans who are paying more for their food, more for their gas. The dollar's weak. They're losing their homes. What specifically are we going to see to get this fixed?
Well, I think we need a couple of things. We need a rapid response to the turmoil in the financial markets. Things can go badly awry in the space of a couple of days or even a few hours. So that kind of thing. But we already have that. The Federal Reserve and the Treasury are working very quickly. They may not be doing exactly the right thing, but they are a rapid response team. Some kind of bailout of the financial sector is inevitable. People on Wall Street have us they're almost like suicide bombers. Give us money, we'll blow us all up. If they don't get some kind of bailout, and if there are not reassurances to people in the markets that things are not going to go completely south, then the financial system could implode, and that would drive the real economy into a depression at worst, or I think, which is a more likely outcome, something like what Japan went through in the 1990s. I think we're going to experience something like that, a really long period of a troubled economy, low growth, no growth, just a feeling of sort of semi-permanent recession. And I think we're going to see several years of that kind of thing. But if they don't mobilize to do some kind of bailout of the financial sector, things could get very ugly and very, very bad.
How much debt can the U.S. handle?
The U.S. has a very, very serious debt problem. Government debt is not as big as it was in the 80s. We've had bigger debt problems in the past, but the private households are just enormously indebted now. So that's a very serious problem. That has to be whittled down. If the United States were an ordinary country, we'd have the IMF on our doorstep proposing an austerity program and a deep recession and belt-tightening and structural adjustment, the sort that's been done to scores of countries around the world. The United States is not an ordinary country and not likely to be subject to that kind of treatment, but that would be the orthodox model for what should be done. The United States needs a recession and a long period of slow growth in order to get its books back into balance. That would be a very inhumane way of going about things, because the wrong people would suffer from that. But that's what orthodoxy would demand. Something's got to give there. But we also need to get our rate of investment up. The corporate sector, despite very high profits, invested very little in this expansion. They hired very weakly during this expansion. And the public infrastructure is falling apart. We need $1 trillion by some estimates to bring our public infrastructure back up to snuff. The American Society of Civil Engineers has done a census of this and reported something in that neighborhood that needs to be spent. We very badly need new R&D to have environmentally friendly forms of alternative energy. That's going to take public money to do that. You could look at that kind of investment program, that kind of spending program, as a long-term economic renovation and stimulus. It's not going to solve the short-term problems we're in, but it would be a good thing in the longer term. But it means shifting money out of things like Wall Street and out of war that are very politically difficult to manage.